The dreaded second album. Is it as onerous and fraught with peril as conventional wisdom would have us believe? I believe it's a dubious distinction, this whole idea of the sophomore slump. I've been going through the history of rock music and I'm finding precious few examples of said sophomore slump. Yeah, Hotter Than Hell's not as good as the first Kiss album. October's not as good as Boy for U2. Go To's not as good as White Music for XTC. Give 'Em Enough Rope wasn't as good as the debut album from The Clash. The Stone Roses, now that's actually a pretty good example. King Crimson, maybe he suffered a bit of a sophomore slump, but for every one of those, you've got people like the Stone Temple Pilots, who they even had a hidden track on their second album about the dreaded second album. Nirvana, Radiohead, Led Zeppelin, Beastie Boys, Pixies, Foo Fighters, Pavement, The Smiths, Black Sabbath, Smashing Pumpkins, Joy Division, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis Costello, The Stooges, Pearl Jam, all put out incredible second albums. So we're going to debunk this whole sophomore slump thing today with the 20 most important sophomore albums in the history of prog, and we're going to start with number 20, and it's Yes and Time in a Word. This thing dropped July 1970. By the time they released this thing, Peter Banks had been fired. He hated the whole idea of an orchestra, and yeah, he was probably right. The album cover was different in the U.S. They didn't like the naked woman cover. But just listen to Chris Squire's bass. Apparently there were problems with the headphones, so they couldn't hear the bass, so they kept bringing the bass levels higher and higher. It's really good. At number 19, we're going to Sweden and Moon Safari with their second album, Blomljud. This came out in 2008. It follows their debut album, A Doorway to Summer, which came out in 2005. If you don't know Moon Safari, check them out. They're one of the best modern prog bands, and they use so much vocal harmonization. It's just really special and wonderful. And this album, I'm including it primarily because the epic Methuselah's Children is just amazing. That 15-minute long track, but it's fantastic. At number 18, we're going to the Netherlands and Kayak with Kayak 2. This came out in 1974. Their debut was 73, See the Sun. It was a good record. A lot of people prefer it. I do not. I think this is a marked improvement over the debut. I love this album. Some people call it Kayak. Some people call it Kayak 2. Some people call it Alibi. I just call it awesome. At number 17, it's Muse and the Origin of Symmetry. This came out in 2001, following the debut Showbiz, which came out in 1999. And this is where Muse became Muse, and they started bringing in all those classical elements, those elements of Rachmaninoff and stuff like that. Yeah, is Muse prog? Yeah, this album and the one that came out right after it kind of tell me that they are. Songs like Newborn, Space Dementia, Megalomania. I don't care if it's prog or not. It's great. It's fantastic. Number 16, it's Germany's Triumvirat and Illusions on a Double Dimple. This came out in 1974. Their debut, Mediterranean Tales, was a decent album. Came out in 72, but this one is a big improvement. For no small part because of the inclusion of Helmut Kohlin on this one, and the third album, Spartacus. Jürgen Fritz is just such a great keyboard player. People kind of derided Triumvirate for being an ELP ripoff band. They most certainly were not. At number 15, it's Atomic Rooster and their masterpiece, Death Walks Behind You, released in September 1970. Their debut came out also in 1970 and featured the great Carl Palmer on drums. This one's got Paul Hammond on drums, John DeCane on vocals, and the great Vincent Crane, who left us in 1989 on that Hammond organ. It's just so heavy and it's just so awesome. I love it. At number 14, we're going to the British band that made their name in Germany. Yeah, it's Nektar and A Tab in the Ocean, released in November 1972. This album's probably best known for the fact that Iron Maiden, when they released the Aces High single, the B-side was King of Twilight, which is a a song off this album. They also have a snippet of a second song from that same album that they work into their version of it, Crying in the Dark. So you kind of got a 2-for-1 deal going on here. But yeah, if you came because of the Iron Maiden connection, stick around because of that side one epic. The title track is just fantastic. A shout out to the great Roy Albrighton, who left us in 2016. What a genius. At number 13, we're going to Italy and PFM, their second album, Un Amico. This came out in 72, as did their debut, which made my list of the top debut albums of all time, but this one's even better. Oh, yeah, it is. All Music reviewed this and said that PFM is always intelligent, but without pretension. This is progressive rock in its most literal definition. Okay, yeah, why not? Number 12, let's go back to Holland and Focus with their second album, Moving Pictures. A lot of people call this Focus 2. This is definitely an improvement over their first album. Focus Plays Focus was a mediocre record. This saw the introduction of 2 new members to the band. Pierre Vanderlinden on drums and Cyril Habermans on bass, joining Thies Van Leer and Jan Ackerman. Wow. Come for Hocus Pocus, but stay for Eruption. At number 11, it's Steve Howe and the Steve Howe-Album from 1979. His first album, Beginnings, came out in 75, was marred by some really bad vocals. This album's so much better than the first Steve Howe-Album. It's fantastic. You've got Claire Hamill singing on one song. You've got Patrick Moraz. You got Bill Bruford. You got Alan White. You got Clive Bunker. And you've got Alan Jackman doing orchestrations, who did all that great orchestration for Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water. Yeah, it's just a dynamite record. At number 10, it's Orme and Collage. Man, do I love Orme. Their first album, Ad Gloriam, was kind of like a psychedelic record. It's not great, but this album is fantastic, and it starts a run of 4 Orme albums, which I rank at 9 out of 10 or higher. This one was followed up by Iomo de Pezza, and then Filona e Serona, and then Cantapunti. Wow, what a great band Orme is. Tony Pagliucci, Aldo Tagliapietra, and Michi Di Rossi. Wow, I just love these guys so much, and this is a terrific starting point in their discography if you don't know who they are. At number 9, it's Gentle Giant and Acquiring the Taste. This came out in 71. Their debut album came out the year prior. A lot of things are similar. They recorded this in Advision. Tony Visconti is behind the board, controlling everything, engineering and producing. You've got Martin Smith one last time on drums, but this is definitely an improvement over the first album. They're starting to experiment with sounds and different genre bending. It's a great record. At number 8, it's Vandergraaf Generator and The Least We Can Do Is Wave to Each Other from February 1970. You could argue that this is the first true Vandergraaf Generator album, as the Grey Aerosol Machine was originally intended to be a Peter Hamill solo album. This was their only record to chart in the UK, which I find really weird. This thing was produced by John Anthony, recorded at Trident Studios, and for some reason, this is the only Vandergraaf Generator album to chart in the UK, which is just kind of weird. Oh, yeah, number 7. This is a good one. It's Transatlantic and A Bridge Across Forever, released in 2001. Their debut, Sympathy, came out the previous year, but this is a better album all the way through. Stranger in Your Soul, Duel with the Devil. I just love this thing. This is where Transatlantic became more of a collaborative thing. They recorded this at Neil's house, so the pressure was off for studio time. They could take their time and really develop these songs, and it's just amazing. It might be my favorite Transatlantic album. It might be my favorite album of the 21st century. It's right up there at number 6. How about some Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Tarkus? Yeah, this one might be a little controversial because I know a lot of people love ELP's debut, but I think Tarkus is better, not least of which the reasoning for that being that side one epic. But I am on record as saying that side two of Tarkus is completely underrated. I totally believe that. It's recorded at Advision, produced by Greg Lake, engineered by Eddie Offord, and it's a classic. Number 5, Camel Mirage, released in 1974. Their debut came out the previous year, and it was really good too. Hey, stop that. One more time. I swear I'm buying a new ring light. I swear. I'm getting some good lighting. It's on my birthday list. I think my wife is going to buy me some like decent lighting, like professional lighting in here. That'd be really great. David Hitchcock produced Mirage. Their next couple albums would be almost as good, The Snow Goose and Moon Madness. But if you put a gun to my head and I had to pick one Camel album, it would be this. And it's because of three reasons why: Free Fall, Super Twister, and A Lady Fantasy. I don't need nothing else. At number 4, we're going back to the US of A and Dixie Dregs' second album, What If? Oh, yeah, I remember walking into a record store. It was the Peaches in Fort Lauderdale, and they were playing this thing on in-store play, and I ran right to the clerk. I'm like, hey, this dude with long hair, he was in a band. He was my hero. I was like 15 or 16 years old. I wanted to grow up to be just like this guy, managing a record store, playing in a band. Funny, I kind of replicated that. But he told me about this band called Dixie Dregs. I thought it was Kansas, but no, it's Steve Morse and his crew. Rod Morgenstein on drums. Oh my God, Andy West on bass. Mark Parrish on keyboards and Alan Sloan on violin. Just an amazing album. Produced by Ken Scott. Their debut album, Free Fall, came out in 1977. It's a good record, but What If is a great record. At number 3, back to Italy. Banco del Mutuo Soccorso and their amazing sophomore release, Darwin. Yeah, this is their masterpiece. It's got the epic La Evolucion, kicks it off. It's just better than the debut in every conceivable way. It sounds better. The production's better. The songs are better thought out. They explore more territory. And you got Francesco Di Giacomo at the absolute peak of his powers. Yeah, Banco is incredible. If you don't know Darwin, do yourself a huge favor and check it out. At number 2, it's Jethro Tull's second album, Stand Up, released in July of 1969. It followed up their 1968 debut, This Was. Obviously, we had a big lineup change after their debut. Martin Barr comes into the band, replacing Mick Abrahams, but apparently along the way, they worked with another guitar player. I guess he was in the early recording and rehearsal sessions for this album. And it is Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. He lasted, I guess, like 3 weeks or something like that in the band. But they got Martin Barr, so they did all right. This album hit number 1 in the UK. Hit number 20 in the US. Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. But there's only going to be one number 1 here. And you know what it's going to be? You figured it out already. Yeah, it's Genesis Trespass, their second album. It's not their debut album. We're not going to play those games here. Yeah, this is just a better record all the way around. You could argue that, this is a totally different band now that they fired Jonathan King. He's not their manager anymore, so they're doing their own thing. Yeah, they have John Mayhew on drums here. He died in 2009. John Anthony produced it. Paul Whitehead did the artwork. He did the next 2 also. This was the final album with great Anthony Phillips, and it's just an amazing album. Stagnation, The Knife. I really like Trespass. I think it's the best example of the sophomore slump being a myth. I have debunked it. I don't think there's any validity to the idea that the second album is problematic for bands. Yeah, for every, situation like the Stone Roses, you have one like the 20 that I just mentioned where the second album was much better than the first. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a great weekend. I'll see you fools soon. Peace and love.